So, good morning, everybody. Hopefully we're all feeling fresh after last night, right? With a great party. So, I'm pleased to introduce you to this morning's session, Defense in Depth, Combating Modern Threats with Jamf. But before I introduce our speaker, we'll have some Q&A at the end. So, when we get time, just put your hands up. I'll come around with the mic and we can get those up here. But yeah, without further ado, I'll introduce our speaker, Adam Boynton.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, Alex is more than just a session host. We're a bit of a double act, so yeah, please bring the questions as technical as you like, because I can't answer them, Alex can't answer them, then something is gone wrong. So yeah, hello everyone, my name is Adam Boynton. I have the pleasure of taking you through this session on how to combat modern threats with Jamf. Now, I appreciate you probably sat through quite a number of sessions these last couple of days. So for this one, I'll make you a promise. This is either going to be the best presentation you're going to see all week, the worst presentation you're going to see all week, or somewhere in between. Okay, so that's my promise. So I'm based out of the UK, but I cover the EMEA region for Jamf. Now my job title is Senior Security Sales Manager. So I know some of you will see security and sales next to each other and think that's a bit of an oxymoron. But I myself, I have over 10 years experience in mobile security. I get involved whenever our security products are part of the equation. So hopefully I am more of the oxy, which translates from ancient Greek to mean sharp, and less of the moron when it comes to that. So, brief look at the agenda. First, I'll share with you our perception of what the mobile threat landscape looks like. Then we're going to talk about how we recommend you build an effective mobile security strategy. And then finally, how we actually then piece this together with Jamf with a couple of pre-recorded live demos. I don't quite have the confidence as the keynote to do the live demos in person, but we do have a couple of devices we can also do live demos of it all as well. But there's some pre-recorded demos of how it all looks with Jamf. So this was actually going to be the title for my talk, but I realized it was quite long, wasn't quite snappy enough, probably wouldn't have got accepted, but I've managed to get it in the presentation anyway. So any business that uses mobile devices has a duty to its customers, employees, and partners to ensure that they're protected against cyber threats. So that is my view, and hopefully by the end of this session, if not already, you'll share that view with me. So, mobile threat landscape. So let's start with the new reality. For those of you that did catch the commercial State of the Union speech, some of these stats will be familiar to you, but there is estimated to be 16.8 billion mobile devices globally. So if my math is correct, that's just over 2 times the total human population. Now, most of us are certainly here, 70% of workers are not sat behind a desk. So whether we are working remotely, whether we're working in a hybrid environment, or even those that are in the office, a lot of our work is done via a mobile device. Although we're not sat behind a computer screen, if we're accessing data or online, that is mostly done through a mobile device. Now, there's been some fantastic innovations recently from Apple and also Android as well. Apple Intelligence, there's obviously a lot of great features for that. I think on a mobile device, both the user and businesses are going to benefit from that. We've also got focus mode. So this is helping to kind of tackle that age-old challenge of BYOD. So on screen here, this is my own device setup. I have focus mode set up for business and personal. As I'm demonstrating here, I can toggle them on and off, but I can also automate them based on the time of day. So at a certain time of day, all of my business applications and accounts disappear. I no longer get notifications from them. I no longer access them, and vice versa. If I'm in a work focus mode, I switch on the business, all my personal applications and accounts disappear. I no longer access them. I also have a dual SIM setup. So I can also turn off phone calls and messages from my work number during a certain time of day and vice versa. Unfortunately, my boss does have my personal number, so it doesn't quite have the same effect. But yeah, there's brilliant features like that which are helping to increase this trend that we can use this device to kind of do most of our day-to-day function. However, with that increased footprint comes the reality. And these are a few trends that I'm certainly keeping an eye on. So the Digital Markets Act, I don't know if this is kind of gained as much traction over the pond. It's something a lot of our European customers are keeping an eye on. This is where Apple have opened up third-party app stores in the EU, so users can now download applications from outside the official app store. Now, Apple have already taken steps to mitigate the risk, so even though the app is outside the official app store, app developers still have to go through certain processes in order to do so. But we only have to look to Android, where third-party apps have been available for a significant period of time. What we find when apps are downloaded from outside the official app stores, where there is less vetting, there is a higher chance of either malicious applications making it onto these unofficial app stores, or actually more often negligence in just how the application handles your data and how it's actually sort of built and coded. So certainly one to keep an eye on in terms of how that progresses. The second one, iOS 17.6. Now this, you might think that's quite an insignificant update. Like why is he highlighting that? And why did it get some press attention? Now, in iOS 17.6, there were 35 separate security fixes that Apple addressed, identified, and remediated with this OS version. In iOS 17.5, there were 15 separate security fixes that they did the same for. So between iOS 17.4 and iOS 17.6, that's 50 separate security vulnerabilities that Apple have identified and fixed. So good news, they're fixing them, but it just really highlights the importance of making sure your device is on that latest version of operating system. And again, another news story from obviously where I am in the EU. The European Parliament announced that a number of their individuals were found to have spyware on their devices. We saw as well the Polish Prime Minister recently came out and said that the previous regime were actively using Pegasus against the opposition within the country. So there's been a lot of traction around these kind of more mercenary spyware type attacks targeting a mobile phone. It's not just the kind of press that's picking up on this. I don't know if any of you are sort of subscribed, but likes of Gartner, IDC, Forrester, they routinely put out like reports and analysis of the mobile threat landscape. So yeah, if any of you do subscribe to these type of analysts, then there's a lot of great information and resources out there from that point of view. And if you're still on the fence about whether the mobile risk is genuine, there's a few other points to consider. Now, did you know that 50% phishing attacks are 50% more successful on a mobile device? Now, why might that be? Now, my session host, Alex, did a brilliant session on phishing yesterday, so for those of you that attended this, you should be able to get this correct. But let's imagine a scenario. Your user, or one of your users, gets a text message from Microsoft. That message says there's been some inactivity on your account. Please click this link to obviously verify your identity or verify your account. They click the link, it takes them through to one of these two pages. Now, one of these is a genuine Microsoft page, one of them is a phishing page. Show of hands, who thinks the one on the left is the genuine Microsoft page? And who thinks the one on the right? Great. That's illustrated my point perfectly, because 50-50, more or less down the middle. So one on the right is the phishing site, one on the left is the genuine one. Now, I have been a little bit sneaky here. Obviously, this is in 2D. If you were to click on the actual domain for login.live.com, you would know that it doesn't finish at .com. There's a load of subdomains that followed after that. But that is one of the challenges on a mobile phone. That's the simple fact. The screen size is smaller. You only see the first part of the URL. Attackers know this. Users don't necessarily know to inspect the full URL. All they need to do is make a fairly convincing login page. And unless you're an absolute Microsoft nut, you're not going to know that forget username isn't actually the correct terminology. So that is obviously why they are twice as likely or twice as successful on a mobile device. Now, to layer on top of that, some other interesting points. Now, these are all from the Jamf 360 report. So I don't know if any of you caught this. This is where each year we produce a report where we analyze our customers' data over a 12-month period and then sort of assess what trends are happening. So focusing on mobile, last year we had 8% of organizations with a mobile device accessing or having a third-party app store app on their device. Now, this was before the Digital Markets Act was passed largely, so I expect that number to increase considerably, but that's still quite a high number. Then we look at 40% of devices were running with a known vulnerability. So that might be a vulnerability within the operating system or a vulnerability within an application. Yeah, we've just spoke about the importance or the significance of these OS updates. We all are potentially aware of that, but it's quite difficult to actually keep users on those latest versions and keep the devices vulnerability free. And then 1% of devices with confirmed mobile malware. Now you might be thinking 1%, why is he highlighting that as a figure? But just remember, there are 16.8 billion mobile devices. So 1% of that is 168 million. So 1% of a big number is still a big number. So yeah, that is again sort of some interesting trends. And like I said, definitely if you haven't already, check out that 360 report with this type of data. So, and then lastly, you best believe that nation states and sophisticated criminal gangs are also taking advantage of this. So our very own Jamf Threat Labs team last year discovered Pegasus was present on a few of our customers' devices. We actually did a detailed write-up of this again, so if you want to find out, firstly, their findings, but also how they were able to determine and discover Pegasus, check out the blog post on that. There was an interesting story where an Egyptian member of parliament announced that he was running for the presidency earlier this year. Upon announcing that, he started to receive suspicious text messages, which he actually didn't click on. He obviously knew that he would be targeted. However, his device still got infected with Predator spyware. So Predator is similar to Pegasus in the fact that if Predator is on your device, it has access to your microphone, your camera, your pictures, your files, etc. So very sophisticated, very nasty piece of malware. How it got onto his device, he was actually just sort of using his device. He then connected to the Vodafone network within Egypt. His device was then automatically redirected to a HTTP site, installed the malware, redirected it back within milliseconds. So they'd installed a black box within the Vodafone network within Egypt specifically to target that individual's device to infect it with spyware. So yeah, quite a James Bond style story, but yeah, we are seeing some similar sort of attacks such as this one. And of course, Apple themselves have put out in the last year 2 separate security notifications telling users across the globe that there is spyware on their devices. So yeah, this is and hopefully what I've done here is I've given you what the media are saying, what analysts are saying, what we at Jamf are seeing, and ultimately, yeah, what the kind of nation states are doing. So you're probably thinking, okay, Adam, I get it. What can I do about it? So we'll go into that now. So we have put together at Jamf a mobile security buyer's guide. So again, we can share with you this guide if you indeed you find it useful, where we've effectively built out a strategy to implement effective mobile security. But I'll take you through that now in more detail. But yeah, it starts with secure configuration management. Then we look at how we actually can prevent attacks, how we want to then secure access to your data, and then ultimately hunting new threats as that final piece. So let's start with mobile device hardening. So this is Security 101. If my mother-in-law asks me, what is the best thing I can do to protect my mobile device? I'd firstly say, like, you haven't won a free iPhone, so don't click that link you received on Facebook. But also, just keep your device on that latest version of operating system. And there's a lot of other like enterprise-rich features that Apple and Android are building into the operating system that we ultimately need to be taking advantage of. But those features are only going to be successful or useful if you're actually utilizing them in the latest version across each of your devices. So how do we do that? Here's a perfect scenario of leveraging some of that built-in protection. So here's a device. The user receives a notification that their device is out of date. Now, this notification is delivered via the Jamf Trust application. So the Jamf Trust application is our end-user application that powers our mobile security products. So they've received a notification that their device is out of date. Quite simple. They could themselves just see that notification and go and update to the latest version. That would be great if every user did that. We know that's not necessarily the reality. So what we can then do in this scenario is, help if I press the clicker, is our IT team is then able to start a company-wide OS upgrade campaign from Jamf Pro using Apple's declarative device management architecture. So in this case, a scheduled software update has been triggered, and it will soon begin on the device. So yeah, you can get a notification from the Jamf Trust application. User knows their device is out of date. Either allow them to update it themselves, and we can also report to you devices what versions of OS devices are running, so you can maybe obviously speak to users, but a lot of the time customers prefer to automate it, take it out of the user's hand, so you can then schedule this accordingly with device declarative management. However, it's not just vulnerabilities within the operating system that you need to be managing. So as you know, there can be vulnerabilities within applications that users are using. So as highlighted here we have a user that gets a notification from the Jamf Trust application that the application that they're using is vulnerable. So this is Firefox in this particular scenario. So what this means is we've identified a vulnerability within the Firefox app, or there is a known CVE associated with this version of the Firefox application. So same principle again, the Jamf Trust application has identified this vulnerability, and it's informed the user that this is a vulnerable application. In this scenario, what's happened is the user has taken it upon themselves to go and get the latest version of the Firefox application. But just as with before, you can use Jamf Pro or your existing device management solution to schedule an automatic update of the application so the user doesn't have to necessarily do this. And again, you can kind of play around with whether you want to automate this, whether you want to do it manually. There's different options available. But Jamf Trust is telling you and the user this application is vulnerable. Jamf Pro is automatically remediating and fixing it on your behalf. So in today's dynamic threat landscape, you want to stay ahead of these vulnerabilities. It's crucial, right? So we have within the console, so this is the Security Cloud console that powers the mobile security product. We have Jamf Vulnerability Management Reporting. So this is designed to provide you with a comprehensive and proactive approach to security management, covering both operating systems and applications. So what we do is we give you real-time CVE reporting. So you or your security teams can quickly address vulnerabilities, and then hopefully that promptness will be able to significantly reduce the window of exposure and the risk of exploitation. What we then can give you is we give you an up-to-date inventory of these vulnerabilities and their remediation status. So if you indeed need to provide auditors with any kind of necessary evidence or reports, it's all there available for you. And lastly, we give you quite a detailed severity rating and contextual data for each CVE. So you can then prioritize what needs to be remediated first and address the kind of potential impact of that. So it means that those critical vulnerabilities, because hopefully you can see it there, we have different scoring mechanisms. We have critical, high, medium, and low. Critical vulnerabilities can be addressed first, and then you can work your way down the list. So yeah, this is a brilliant feature. We announced it within the last sort of year, 18 months. So for those of you that do use Security Cloud, hopefully you are sort of utilizing this. But yeah, this has definitely been a very sort of common and popular feature since we've rolled it out and introduced it. It's quite unique to the market as well in terms of getting that type of visibility across your mobile estate. So expanding on that theme of application usage, a lot of our customers struggle with the balance of security, privacy when it comes to the use of mobile devices, right? And especially if you implement a corporate-owned, personally enabled device ownership model, which is typically the most common method. There often are sometimes examples where there are applications or services that are not deemed acceptable in any capacity. So you allow the user to use their device freely. They can download applications they wish, but in some scenarios, in this one we're using TikTok as a scenario, a lot of governments last year took the step to remove the use of TikTok from company-owned devices. It could also be applicable if it's a gambling application or an adult website. In the past, I've had a customer of mine that worked in sort of engineering. They had field staff that they'd issued iPads to. One of those field staff was caught watching inappropriate videos, I'll leave it there, on this tablet in between jobs. A picture was taken with the company van and the logo on there, which then appeared in the Daily Mail. So like reputational damage down the drain from that. So you might want to consider sort of what is acceptable usage on the mobile device. Now in this scenario, we are using Jamf Pro, and hopefully you caught that, to remove the application from said device, but also restrict the user from being able to download the application in the first place or in the future. However, users will find a way to access the application, especially those in sales. Remember, the sales part of my job title translates to moron, so I have that experience, right? So you want to make sure that you are also stopping them from accessing it through the browser. Yeah, if you're stopping TikTok or a certain application, but they can go to Safari or they can go to another browser and still access it, it's kind of, yeah, so you're only solving half the challenge. That's where the security cloud then comes in. So the way the security cloud, the service works, we install the Jamf Trust application, but at the same time the Jamf Trust application gets installed on the device, we are setting up some kind of network security. So this is typically delivered via a DNS-based approach, where we'll act as a device DNS resolver. We do also have an on-device content filtering option available for iOS users, where we don't necessarily have to we can do everything locally on the device. But essentially what we're able to do is control how the device is communicating with the internet. So in this case, blocking the user from being able to access TikTok or other, like an adult website or whatever it might be, to do that. So we talked about and showcased the content filtering element. That is optional. You might not necessarily be too worried about that, but what you might be worried about is how Jamf prevents phishing attacks. So I use the scenario of a user getting a text message. It's not just text messages that users can get phished. This is actually a Teams link that the user's been sent. But what's happened? They click the link. We've identified it as phishing, given them a nice block page and also a notification. Now, that notification is entirely customizable. So if you have users in different locations where they speak a different language, for example, then you can customize the notification. Or you might want to put, at the bottom, how to resolve. You might want to put a number or an email address the user can reach out to. Now, how we determine whether a website is phishing, obviously we have a significantly large database that we've built up over the years of what are these known phishing sites. But most phishing sites have a shelf life of 24 hours before they're removed from the internet. So that database is only so effective. So we have we use a machine learning tool, and sort of 20 minutes in, I've used machine learning once, so that's a new record. So essentially what it does is if a user clicks on a domain or a URL that we've not seen before, then it will automatically analyze that, and it will look for a number of factors. One of the first things it will look for, has a well-known brand been mocked? So if the user's clicked on a link or is going to a site which has Apple within the domain, we know every single Apple registered domain. And if that doesn't match up to be what we know to be genuine, that's going to sort of impact the scoring to determine if that's a phishing site or not. We also then look at the actual, the way the domain is composed. So we look at the subdomains. Are there any suspicious subdomains? So that example I gave you of Microsoft earlier, we would notice that after login.live.com, there were a number of subdomains. We even look for like suspicious keywords within there, when the domain was registered, where it was registered. If it was registered in the last 24 hours, that also highly increases the chance that it is a phishing site. Is it using a top-level domain that's not consistent? So there's a number of factors at play here, but essentially, if it hits a certain score within the AI mechanism, then we'll block that as phishing. And then as you can see, user gets an alert, admin gets an alert as well, saying, right, that site is a phishing site. What about more advanced threats? So in this case, our user has managed to install an application containing malware. So it's called Casino Winner. When the user clicks on the application, you'll see that actually automatically they get presented with this block page. So what we've done here is that the Jamf Trust application has identified it as malware, but it's automatically blocked what we classify as malicious or malware network traffic. So that might be blocking command and control traffic, for example. So we've immediately prevented the application from communicating with the wider internet. What we've also done, because the device risk level has been increased, we've utilized Jamf Pro to remove not only that application, but other critical business applications. And what's even cooler, we presented that custom sort of lock screen to say your device has been compromised, please contact the necessary department. So again, this highlights the importance of having the Jamf Trust mobile security application, but also the device management functionality in place to be able to do that remediation effort. So then we look at sort of the third piece, which is about how you secure access to your data. So on-prem applications have traditionally been invisible to outside attackers, but obviously the adoption of SaaS and other cloud services, especially on mobile, are not inherently locked down in the same way as on-prem applications are. So in many cases, these applications can be reached from anywhere, and data access is mainly only gated by some form of authentication. Now, multi-factor authentication has massively reduced credential-based attacks, which an attacker logs in as if they were the legitimate user. However, multi-factor authentication does not always provide the necessary protection, especially against a more targeted credential theft attacks. And we've seen numerous examples of where attackers have been able to replicate or mimic that multi-factor source to then sort of gain access to data. So that basically leaves the accessibility of data and the resources that are stored in this cloud completely up to that efficacy of that user authentication method. So one of the best ways to prevent these types of attacks is to eliminate the resources or the data's discoverability and accessibility from the open internet as much as possible. So even if an attacker does have the user's credentials and is able to sort of bypass that multi-factor place, they're still not going to be able to connect to that. What we have here is within our mobile security solution, we have a built-in zero trust network access component. So it's built into the same application, same architecture. Essentially, it sets up a dynamic split tunnel or a per app VPN. So you would specify all of your business applications that would go through this traffic routing. When you then use this, we provide you with a dedicated IP. So you would then, with all your cloud or SaaS applications, you would specify that access is only allowed or granted when that traffic comes from that IP. So yeah, like I said, if a user does, if an attacker does get hold of their credentials, they're still not going to be able to connect to your applications or data because that traffic's not come from the IP. There's a lot of other brilliant sort of use cases for that, which I'll talk about later on in terms of the zero trust element. And then, does this work in a BYND environment? Yep, of course it does. So account-driven user enrollment, hopefully you're familiar with what that brings. It sets up a separate partition on the device. You can, of course, do this on Android devices as well. So any of you who do have Android Enterprise have very similar sort of ways of doing this. It sets up that separate partition. What you can then do with the Jamf products is you can install the Jamf security solution to that business side of the device. So all your business applications and traffic will be tunneled through that secure VPN as there, but all personal applications and traffics will be entirely sort of untouched. They'll go direct to the internet. Now, you can also, on the BYOD topic, you can also implement some kind of DLP type policies, so restricting the ability to copy and paste from a business application to a personal application. So if you are allowing users to have that, they can't copy and paste work email and put it into their notes or vice versa. We use it internally at Jamf. So I already showed you my focus mode setup earlier. This is something we all use internally at Jamf in terms of that BYOD model. And again, if anyone wants to see it in action, I'm more than happy to show my device. Now, the final piece of that four-step approach is to hunt for new threats. Now, you might be thinking, well, how is this possible? There's not really a tool on the market that can do this in the same way it can for Windows and Mac until now. So with Jamf, we have this product called Jamf Executive Threat Protection. We call it JETP for short, because yeah, Jamf Executive Threat Protection is quite a mouthful each time you have to say that. So what this offers is deep visibility into the system and kernel level of the mobile device. So what you're getting here is this telemetry. You can analyze the logs. You can search for potential sort of anomalies that indicate malicious activity, looking for known indicators of compromise, but also suspicious behavior that could indicate a device has been compromised. Once you obviously have that information, you can use it to either deny access to critical applications or remove sort of any kind of malware or threats on the device. So I'll talk a little bit later just how Jamf Executive Threat Protection works and it's deployed. But what this is doing is it's just bringing mobile in line with your Windows and your Mac in terms of being able to get this type of visibility and data as to what is going on the mobile device. So let's have a look at this, how this all kind of pieces together with Jamf as a kind of perfect scenario. So here we have a device that is enrolled with Jamf Pro. It has the Jamf Trust app installed with the mobile security product sort of running in place. Now, here the user gets that outdated version, outdated operating system alert sent through to their device. However, this time, the user ignores that initially and tries to access work resources. Now, what you can do with the zero trust product or feature of the solution I mentioned earlier is you're not only setting up that secure tunnel to business applications, you can also set certain criteria or access policies that need to be met in order for that tunnel to be initiated and complete. So one of those might be, we require your device to be running the latest version of operating system in order to connect to applications, as is the case here. So not only can you send an alert to say your device is out of date, not only can you automate an update if you wanted to go down that route, but you could restrict access to applications until they go ahead and update their operating system. Same principle applies for other types of threats as well. So it could be you've got a vulnerable version of an application on your device, you're not allowed to access company applications. You clicked on a phishing link in the last 24 hours, you're not allowed to access applications. You've got an app on your device which we deem to be a security risk, you're not allowed. So the possibilities are endless, but essentially what you're doing is you're ensuring that a device that's considered a high security risk cannot connect to your company resources. Once you've then done that, you then have that kind of always-on protection. So as sort of we demonstrated here, the device now is able to connect to company resources. It is considered secure, but whoopsie, the user's clicked on that phishing link again. They've fallen victim to the same attack. But obviously, you saw earlier how that protection is in place. So we haven't really sort of spoke about trusted access too much, but that is Jamf Trusted Access in full flow in all its glory in terms of how it's intended to work on a mobile device. What makes this unique is everything is all delivered through Jamf. There are alternative solutions on the market that can do a piece of each of that puzzle. We at Jamf, we have what we believe is unique is that we can offer it all as kind of one provider. Now, you might be thinking, great, we can relax now. We've implemented the Jamf mobile products on our device. We're fine. Now, here's my Columbo moment. There's one more thing. So imagine this scenario. Your CEO is traveling back from a successful business meeting. They're on the phone to your head of product, telling them how the investors were raving about this latest feature that we're about to develop. And he's really excited about it. But your CEO maybe doesn't have the best overall security hygiene. In this case, they've also got a personal tablet that they're using. I'm not stereotyping CEOs, but I'm sure we are all thinking of an individual that sort of displays those type of behavior traits. And he's fallen asleep in the airport lounge. And he's left his phone and tablet on the table. Now, you might be thinking, that's not a plausible scenario. May I present to you my own anecdote? So a couple of months ago, I was at Amsterdam airport, and in the lounge, a gentleman next to me was on the phone. He was actually having quite a loud conversation about the intricacies of his late mother's will, so quite a personal conversation. He then left to go to the bar to get another drink or go to the restroom. He was gone for about 15 minutes, and he'd left his phone unattended on the table. Not only that, he'd left it unlocked with no passcode. Can hear the collective groans and gasps. Now, I'm not an attacker, so all I did was take a picture for obviously, I knew it would come in handy at some point. But yeah, you'd be amazed how many individuals don't have a passcode, or if you do enforce passcode, how many individuals have 4 zeros or 2580 as their passcode. Sometimes it's so they can give their phone to their family and they can access it straight away. But it's amazing how often I see this, people just leaving their phones sort of unattended, whether they're traveling or not. What could I have done if I was an attacker? So quick disclaimer, so we don't get in too much trouble. So what I could have done, it is possible, I could have removed a legitimate application from that device and then installed a fake version from a side-loaded app store, such as Alt Store. So in this case, we're using Facebook. Now you can see real Facebook, side-loaded Facebook. There's no way a user can tell once it's on their device, especially if they don't know what's happened, which one is the genuine and which one isn't. Once we've installed this application, like I mentioned, side-loaded apps, obviously they don't go through the same vetting process, so there's a lot of possibilities. Now this is a video of our Threat Labs team doing this demo in a controlled environment. This is all accessible through the internet. If you want to see this video, share the video, but also read the write-up of how they did it. Full disclosure, this is done on a device with an outdated operating system, so the OS is quite a few versions old. but is just highlighting the possible. So hopefully you can see everything the user is putting in that fake Facebook application is just going straight to the attacker's console. We've blurred it out because then what we do is we log in with a genuine Facebook page. So we don't want you to see our Threat Labs team Facebook password. But you can, effectively, hopefully this illustrates the point. Imagine this isn't Facebook. Imagine this is a business application. Your CEO is saying, right, yeah, that feature, that new feature we're developing or product we're developing is really important, or whatever it might be. It could be a Slack or a Teams type application that they've mimicked, and the user has no clue, but everything that they do is being captured by the attacker's console, attacker's device there on the left. Now, thankfully, in this scenario, our CEO wasn't as stupid as he appears, because he signed off on a product called Jamf Executive Threat Protection a few months ago. So Jamf Executive Threat Protection, we announced this last year. This is our kind of latest mobile security product. What it effectively does, what it is, it's an advanced detection and forensics tool for mobile devices. So we are collecting data at a far deeper level from a mobile device. So think we're kind of going at that system and kernel level. So system diagnostics, crash and process files, crash logs, etc. How we do that is we effectively, as demonstrated here, we do a device scan. That device scan, there's two methods of doing a device scan. We either do it via a physical connection, so we have a collector application installed on a PC or a Mac. So someone maybe in your InfoSec team has this. User brings their device, plugs it in. That initiates trust from the device to the collector and allows us to access those logs to then perform that. Once we then collect those logs, they're sent to either a cloud, or we do also offer an on-premise sort of environment for the log analysis to take place. We are analyzing those logs, looking for those known indicators of compromise, but also looking for suspicious behaviors that could indicate an attack has taken place, and then presenting you and the user with an immediate response. So most scans take about 60 seconds, so very quick, very simple. I recently met with a well-known organization based in Brussels that sort of deals in government and military, who has an in-house analyst who does this. Like, they collect that data if a user thinks their device has been compromised. It takes them about 3 to 5 days to sift through that data. So what takes them 3 to 5 days, they're getting for 60 seconds utilizing this tool. By default, it doesn't collect any PII data, so we don't look at passwords, we don't look at pictures, files, messages, anything like that on the device. We're just purely collecting the data we need to analyze that. So you could also easily implement this in a BYD environment. We do also have an option where you can deploy an application that can do remote scanning without the user having to necessarily bring the device to someone in info security. We also have customers who deploy this in a kiosk mode. So this is like a fixed terminal you put in your office. So if you think every one of your individuals within the organization could be targeted with these type of attacks, then you have this kiosk mode where anyone can come and plug their device in and scan it, sort of if they think their device has been attacked. So let's finish with an analogy, because you might be thinking, right, why do I need executive threat protection on top of the other security products? And actually, that was a question asked in a session we did earlier this week on that particular product. So here's a picture of my house. It's not really my house, but it's illustrating this scenario. So bear with me on this analogy, because it hopefully will make sense by the end of it. So imagine your mobile device as if you were building a house, okay? So Jamf Pro, this is like the house itself and the inbuilt OS security. So that's like the brick walls, the sturdy front door, the gate around the house itself. It's that secure foundation when it comes to building it. Now, our Jamf Protect, the mobile security element, this is like putting locks on your front doors, maybe even buying a guard dog, putting barbed wire around the fence. These are things to prevent an attacker coming onto your house. Same way that Jamf Protect is preventing an attacker from getting onto your device and accessing your data. Then we have the Zero Trust Network Access product. That's like putting a video doorbell system in place. So you're ensuring that only authorized users can actually access your house, and only authorized users can access your device and your data. Then we have Jamf Executive Threat Protection. This is the equivalent of putting an alarm system in your house. So if someone gets onto your property, it's telling you there's someone in your house and sort of like informing you of that. Now, for some of us, myself included, I maybe don't need a sophisticated alarm system. Like I've obviously got a lock on my front door. I've got gates around the house itself. I've even got a guard dog, although he's a Labrador retriever, so he'll just lick you to death if you do try and come onto the house. But he is there. He's got a loud bark, so he is preventing someone from trying to get onto the device. But I don't have like a sophisticated alarm. I don't have anything really high value other than my wife and children, so don't let them know I said that. But anything really high value in the house itself. But if I'm our CEO, maybe I've got an expensive watch collection, expensive whiskey collection, or I've got some artwork that actually is quite high value. And the same principle applies for the mobile phone. If I'm a CEO of a company, I might have sensitive data on the phone, or just by simply having the phone in my pocket, if someone can listen in to every conversation I'm having through that mobile phone, that was obviously sensitive. So if I'm a CEO, I'm probably investing in an alarm system. Maybe I'm even getting laser beams and other stuff. So if someone does get into my property, I know about it. So Executive Threat Protection is there to detect if something has happened. The other mobile security products are there to prevent it. So you might be thinking 99% of your users, they just need that preventative technology. But there is certain individuals within your organization that we definitely would recommend, especially if you're doing business in these higher risk countries or dealing in sort of higher risk sort of environments, then ultimately you might want to consider, like, do you have this kind of capability here? So I hope that made sense. So just to summarize, the mobile risk is real. Apple provide an excellent foundation when it comes to securing that OS. And then Jamf enhances that security with our MDM, MTD, and Zero Trust network access capabilities. And then we also offer on top of that this unique mobile forensics tool that can help against those more sophisticated attacks to give you, our customers, that complete mobile security. So that is my talk. We've got a bit of time for some Q&A. So yeah, Alex will come around with the mic if anyone does have a question. On that.
JetP, I understand it's more of a deep forensic scan once the attack has taken place, whereas Jamf Protect is more of the preventative one. So I just wanted to understand whether Jamf Executive Threat Protection, does it also have any element of the preventative one, whether it will be able to detect threats in advance and block them like we have for Jamf Protect? I have a couple of questions. This is my first question.
Yeah, so no, Jamf Executive Threat Protection is more of a, like I said, detection tool. It will be able to potentially give you, because often what happens is these attacks happen in stages. So it might be that the first stage, the attacker installs some kind of software on the device, but then leaves it dormant for a period of time. That often is to try and evade other security techniques. So Jamf Executive Threat Protection could determine, for example, it can tell you whether there's a vulnerability that's been exploited on the device. So it could be, okay, like that is not necessarily confirmation an attack has taken place, but something to keep an eye on. So there is some elements that it could potentially prevent that, but it is more of a detection tool. It is also reliant on how frequently you scan the device. So if you install the end user application, you can scan the device fairly frequently, so every couple of hours. If you don't install the application on the device and you require the user to bring in the device to do a scan in person, then obviously you're relying on how frequently they do that. So yeah, it's more, it will tell you, right, this happened. It will give you a timestamp of when those when the attack has potentially taken place. So you can work backwards to determine what happened on that date to why that has happened, but it's not necessarily going to prevent it.
And once it identifies that this particular device is compromised, does it have any remediation strategy, just like how we have in Jamf Protect, where it gives you the step-by-step instructions on the remediation? If you go to the Jamf Protect demo portal, I've seen that. So do we have something like that for JetP?
We are building it. It's not something we'd offer today. A lot of our customers, especially given the nature of what it could potentially be detecting and the nature of the individuals it often is, a lot of customers don't necessarily want to do an automatic, because often how to fix it, you wipe the device. That is kind of the last resort for a lot of users until they know definitively that this device has been compromised. So at the moment, it's just alert, and then what the customer does with that information is up to them. But we are building into the product those remediation capabilities, so and sort of further integration with the Jamf Pro product, so you'll get a similar sort of outcome you do with the other security product.
And does this, I understand this is more of, it covers attacks from an OS level, kernel level, which is more of a device level attacks. So I just wanted to understand, does it also cover the cybersecurity network level threats?
It has the potential to, but that's also what Jamf Protect with the kind of network security element is going to be there for. So we'd certainly, we have a lot of customers that use just the mobile security product and not Executive Threat Protection. We certainly would recommend you don't just have Executive Threat Protection. There's kind of pointless having an alarm system in place without a lock on the front door. So that is what the Protect component is going to offer more so than Executive Threat Protection.
So you're saying if we wanted to deal with the cybersecurity attacks, it's better to go with Jamf Protect.
For your everyday user, like I said, Protect is going to prevent attacks. Executive Threat Protection is going to detect them. So a combination of the two, ideal, but for most users, just that first element is enough.
Yeah, and I've also seen in the JetP demo portal, your sandbox live environment, that there is also an AI engine. So is there any AI engine that's operating in the backend like we have for the Jamf Protect Miriam?
Yeah, so when we are collecting those data, we are looking for known indicators of compromise, but we're also looking at suspicious behaviors which could indicate an attack has taken place. So it might not necessarily, and that's what the AI engine is doing. It's sort of working out, okay, we've seen that an attack in the past used this particular path, and this path is now being used, but they've diverted this way. So that will sort of flag as, when you do a scan with the product, it will tell you 3 outcomes. Device has been attacked, device is secure, or triage. So that third outcome, triage, is where we found something suspicious, probably using the kind of AI component of the product, but we actually warrant an additional look into that data manually, which is why we have that triage option.
And is that the same AI engine which is being leveraged? We have the Miriam for Jamf Protect,
No,
or is it a
different one.
And I see, this is not for detecting, this is, this is more of once the threat is analyzed. But the AI engine is usually used for detecting all of these threats in advance. So how is this relevant here, having an AI engine at the back end?
I don't quite understand.
So it's more about taking what is essentially raw data from a device, which on its own means very little. It's not interpretable by most of us. However, that engine gives you the ability to pick out the things that are important. It will take the information that would be indicators of compromise, essentially. And that's the benefit of that engine with that data, essentially. Perfect.
We are at time, but obviously if anyone does have a question, like Alex and I will be around. So yeah, thank you everyone.